So you enjoy thrifting and vintage and used clothing and all things fashion related. And you're like, I'm thrifting all the time. I have so much stuff lying around. What if I tried to sell it? And what if I could make that my full-time job? But what does that even look like? Where do I start? What do I even think about starting to do first? How can I make this official? And what does it take to make my thrifting side hustle my full-time job? Well, I'm hoping to help you answer that question here today and give you some insight on how I did it and some tips and tricks. Hi guys, my name is Caroline and I have been selling vintage clothes under my business name Neomai Vintage for 5 years now. And while yes, I am still constantly figuring things out every single day, mostly about like how I work best, luckily I already got the hardest part over with. I started, and a lot of people are really intimidated by the idea of starting a new business venture. And today I'm going to tell you how I did it and give you some tips and guidelines for you to hopefully do the same. This is going to be a lot of talking. Alrighty, so let's first start by answering the question, why should you start a thrifting business? If simply the fact that you like thrifting is not good enough for you, I have some pros written down about why I love my job so much and reasons why I think thrifting is just one of the best jobs you can have if you really enjoy it. So first and foremost, obviously selling vintage clothing and used clothing has a positive impact on the environment because basically anything that helps circulate the clothing in the consumer market versus ending up in a landfill is helping the environment. I'm not going to spit all the facts at you about the waste in the fast fashion industry and all of that stuff because you should definitely look that up and just do some research. It is kind of insane once you get into it. So yeah, it's just a job that has a positive impact. You're helping circulate these clothing items that might otherwise be thrown away. Another pro is that obviously having your own business like this gives you so much freedom. Like you already know, that's one of the perks of having a small business is you create your own schedule. Personally, my day-to-day work life looks different, like literally every single day. I get to choose how many hours I work, whether I even want to go to work. And then sometimes I wake up on a random Tuesday and I'm like, I'm not feeling it. I think I'm gonna stay home today and have like a mental health day. And basically the amount of money you make is up to you. The more that you thrift and list and market and work, the more money you're probably gonna make. Another pro is that the thrifting community is so nice. They are so willing to help you. Like I remember when I first started the markets, I was a little baby. I had recently just started vintage. I had so many questions and all of the people at the market were so nice to me. They always were eager to help. And it's just a really nice community on social media and in real life. That is definitely a plus. Another pro is that vintage can be extremely profitable if you are smart about the way that you source and the prices that you buy things at. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about sourcing in a little bit. So another pro is that there's a lot of things to be learned from vintage, like really deep diving into the fashion industry throughout the decades and like learning about all of that. There is like almost endless amounts of information that you can find about all these brands and all the labor unions and the like trade laws and how all of that affects the clothing that came out from the 40s to the early 2000s. Like there's a lot of information to learn. So it's like you can learn as much as you want about it, but like if you're someone that wants to have a business that you can kind of like master and like know a lot of information about, if that makes sense. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's just really interesting how much information there is out there about vintage clothing and how much there is to learn. And I've always found it very interesting. I'm by no means an expert, but one day I will like take it like so seriously that I'm gonna study it and I just want to know everything. Another pro is that thrifting and vintage is extremely popular right now. Like I don't know if you've noticed, but like everyone's thrifting, everyone wants vintage clothing. It is the thing right now, and that means that you're not gonna have to try very hard to get people to buy your products if you have good quality finds, you know what I mean? And yes, there's a lot of other vintage and like thrift businesses out there, and you might think that that's like competition, but if you think about it, most people are selling unique items. So it's really just like up to the customer whether they find an item that they like first in your shop versus someone else at a price that they want to pay. And it's like everyone's selling unique items, so you can't compete because it's technically all different items. And the last pro I wrote down is that you're always working with something new and unique, and like you're not working with the same items every single day. It's always something new, and there's always possibility for you to find something crazy and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe this is in my possession right now. Like that high and like chasing that high, I feel like is what really keeps thrifters going. It's just so fun, the possibilities to be had and like what things that are out there that you can find that just like, they're really cool if you appreciate vintage and clothing and all that in general. So I just think it's really cool that you're never working with the same things and your inventory is constantly evolving and your style is constantly evolving. So yeah, I'm sure there's many more pros than that, but that's just what I have written down right off the top of my head. So let's move on. So with all that taken into consideration, if you've decided that you want to move forward with starting your little thrifting small business, the next thing we need to talk about is finding your style. AKA, what kind of clothes do you typically thrift? What eras are they from? What styles are they? What kind of people buy these styles and eras and yada yada yada? What are things that are popular right now? All that good stuff. You're gonna want to have a really good idea of the kind of stuff that you're gonna sell moving forward. It can help to have like a notable style that future customers can recognize you for selling, if that makes sense. Like for example, I like to sell very bright and colorful, funky pattern stuff from like the 60s to the 90s, and people that have shopped with me before can like walk up to my booth at a market without ever seeing my name or logo on it, and just by looking at the clothes they know it's probably my booth, because my customers that shop with me frequently know what kind of stuff that I sell, and that's why they shop with me frequently, because they like the kind of stuff that I sell. So yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about that. You just want to like narrow down the kind of stuff that you like, or just have like a general idea of what kind of image and era do you want to focus on, period. That's all I have to say about that. Okay, I had to move away from the window because looking into the light was like blinding me. But next we're going to talk about sourcing and getting your inventory. So most people do just thrift at their local thrift stores. They thrift at Goodwill and the Goodwill bins and any other family-owned thrift stores or whatever that you may have in your city. There's a lot of thrift stores that are like unique to specific cities. But yeah, that's what I do, and it's pretty common to do it like that. And if this is the route that you're choosing to go, you just want to make sure that you're not paying too much for individual items. I think in general, I like to keep my items under $6 because at least in Houston, it's really hard to sell things for more. Like in general, my prices are like from $25 to $45, and $45 is like the high end. Like that's for something really special. And so if I want to keep my profit margins pretty good, I don't want to go over $5 or $6 for individual items. And that's just kind of my rule of thumb. So definitely keep that in mind at the thrift stores. Don't just like be buying things willy-nilly, because sometimes they jack up the prices, and you always want to be checking those prices, because it'll randomly, you'll find a cool jacket and it's like $40. I'm like, this is a thrift store. And then I did want to talk about like the rag house business of it all. In some cities like Houston is like one of the biggest ones. There are warehouses that are like used clothing warehouses, or people call them rag houses, where they have used clothing and then usually separate the vintage on the side. It is very hard to get into these rag houses if they're already selling to a vintage like company or a vintage person. But sometimes if you get in, you'll buy like either vintage bulk and it's just miscellaneous, you kind of just have to choose what you want out of the bulk that you bought, or you buy like a bulk bale of just like, could be anything in there, and you're just hoping that there's some vintage in it, and that's usually kind of cheap. It's only worth it if you find vintage, and it's very hard to get into those rag houses unless you have like really good connections, or if you catch one like when they're opening, I would say. So I just wanted to mention that because I know if you do like a deep dive on the vintage world and community, you'll probably run into the companies that only source from rag houses, because usually it's only big companies that can afford to buy the amount that you need to buy at rag houses to get what you need out of it. So yeah, just wanted to mention that because you'll definitely run into that if you look far enough. Let me change my battery. Moving on from the sourcing of it all, I want to mention that this is kind of obvious, but you want to be really good at identifying vintage, and it's like, duh. But like, you definitely want to know your craft, and you want to get to know what you're trying to sell really well, because it'll make you more reputable. And I do recognize that some people might not be selling vintage. Some people thrift for like modern and like athleisure stuff and resell that. So just like really get to know your product. And if you are doing vintage, just like reading up and learning about all the different kinds of tells for vintage and all the yada yada yada, all the information out there about how to identify vintage. There's a lot of information to be learned about it, like I mentioned earlier. So it's just, I think it's important to do some research and just know your craft pretty much. Also, I was wondering if y'all would want me to do like an ultimate guide to identifying vintage video, because there's videos out there and I started watching a couple of them, but I was like, what if I watched all these videos and I did a lot of research and I made like a whole compilation of all that information so it's all in one video? Like, I don't know how much better I can make it than the videos that are already out there, but if you would like a video from me explaining all the ways to identify vintage, just let me know, because I am kind of interested in making it, but it's also like a lot of work. So let me know if you actually want it, because if nobody wants it, then I'm probably not gonna use my time doing that. So next we're moving on to legal requirements. Yay! So boring, but I just wanted to tell you what I have as far as like legal documentation of my business, because this is kind of just like a up to you kind of thing. Like, let me just tell you. Okay, so when I first decided that I wanted to have my own little thrifting business, first thing I did was ask my dad, hey, what do I need to do as far as legal requirements if I want this to be like legit for many years to come? And he was like, okay, I was like 15 or 16 at the time. So he said, let's create a DBA for your little business. And then later on down the line, if you become real serious, you can change it up and make it more like a LLC or like a sole proprietorship or whatever. So I initially started by going down to the county clerk's office and I was like, hey, I want a DBA. And they were like, okay, here's this paperwork. And you basically just put your business name down, your name, all this information, yada, yada, yada. And then you pay like a small fee. I don't remember how much it was, but it like really wasn't much at all. And now you're legally doing business as your business name. I'm legally doing business as Neomai Vintage. So that is what I first did. And then we kind of get into taxes. Yay, taxes. But essentially, I honestly cannot remember if registering my DBA gave me an EIN number, which is an employer identification number. I can't remember if I got that by getting my DBA or if I used my DBA to apply for an EIN number, which I'm pretty sure it was that way. I think you used your DBA to apply for an EIN number, and the EIN number allows you to pay taxes on your business. Like, that's the number that you put on your tax forms and all that. And yeah, so eventually I did get an EIN number when I started making enough money to report it as my yearly income. And then I almost forgot, but when I turned 18, we did go back to the clerk's office, or maybe we did this online, I don't really remember, but we made my business into a sole proprietorship, and I couldn't do that before I turned 18. And I think when I did my DBA, it was kind of like under my mom's business because I was so young, but it was still a DBA. I don't know, it was a little bit confusing, but eventually I made my business a sole proprietorship, so it is like Neomai Vintage SP. And yeah, so as far as like legal things, I think that's all I've done. I am paying taxes for my little thrifting business. She is official. And I did want to mention that like I definitely know people that don't pay taxes on their business because they typically have like a part-time job or a full-time job, and they do like vintage flea markets and pop-ups on the weekends. And so they report their taxes for like their part-time or full-time job, but not for their little thrifting job, if that makes sense. So like there's definitely people that don't report their taxes for this. Just some food for thought. And you definitely don't have to make it all official when you first start. I personally just wanted to get it done as quickly as possible because that would help me like way down the line when I want to like buy a car or buy a house or yada yada yada. It would help to have all of that like written in stone, like this is what I did. I actually do have a business. It is documented. I have income. That's documented and all that fun stuff. So yeah, that is it for legal stuff. Woo, that's boring. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about all of the different selling platforms that you could potentially sell your clothes on. So I'm currently using Shopify primarily for my website, and then I use Depop as well, and basically just Instagram, like those three things. And then I also use Vendoo to cross-list things from my website to my Depop. And some people use Vendoo to cross-list their items to like every single website that you can sell things on. And the other websites that are most common would be like eBay, Poshmark, Etsy. And recently something that's becoming a lot more popular is selling on lives or like on apps like Whatnot, where you literally just go live and you're showing off all the stuff that you have to sell. A lot of people use that. I have yet to try that because it scares me and I don't like fully understand it. So gotta do some research about that on your own. But yeah, I've been hearing more and more people use that to sell things. So do with that information what you will. And yeah, I think that's all of the like main selling platforms that I constantly hear people using. As far as website building goes, if you want to go the website route, definitely use Shopify. I built my website on my own pretty much because it made it so easy. And yeah, I just highly recommend using that if that is what you want to do. But I know a lot of people start on Depop specifically because I feel like Depop does a generally good job at like pushing out your products to new people. So like, yeah, I like it. I only use Depop mainly for pants because pants, you just like need so much more information to list them onto a website and it takes longer and I don't like doing it for my website. So I put them on Depop. So yeah, that is that. Next, I wanted to talk about having good product pictures and also about pricing. So as far as the pictures, just like try. Just like try to make them remotely good. I've seen some pictures of like listings on Depop that are just so like blurry and just horrible lighting. Just don't do that. Try your best to at least have good lighting and clear pictures. You don't need a professional camera to take product pictures. Don't post bad product pictures because it's like you want to make the checkout process for customers as smooth as possible. And if they feel like they can't fully see an item, then they're probably not going to buy it. I know a lot of people will take their pictures outside on the ground when it's like sunny outside, so the pictures come out really good. I personally take my pictures with like flashlights, not flashlights, but like the lights that flash when you take a picture, you know what I mean? Like I have a whole like setup, but that's mainly because I'm extra and like I really wanted like white background pictures for my website. So that's why I decided to invest in the whole lighting setup, but most people don't do that. Think about how you're going to make your product pictures stand out and clear and have good lighting. And then moving on to pricing. Honestly, the best advice for pricing is just to look it up. I feel like what most people do is they get an item and they like reverse Google search it, which I do this a lot too. Just do that and look at what people are selling similar items for. And based on where you're selling it, if you're selling it online, you probably want to do similar to what you see online. But if you're selling it in person, mark it up and mark it down from what you see online. Like for example, if I'm selling in Houston, I'll probably go like at the online rate or maybe a little bit lower. If I'm selling in Austin, I can probably mark it up a little bit because people in Austin will pay good money for vintage because it's just the way the culture is over there. So just keep that in mind. Online selling can be very different from in-person selling depending on where you are. If you want to do like pop-up markets and stuff like that. And a lot of it is trial and error. I am constantly changing prices on my items. Like if you look at my price tags, you'll see like a lot of blacked out original prices and then I write a new price. And that's usually me marking it down because I always want to see like if it can sell at a higher price before I mark it down. That's what I have to say about pricing. Okay, I wanted to sit back down for this one. So next I wanted to talk about marketing your business, which is a whole thing. Like, oh my God, I could probably go on forever about this because in a way, even this video is a form of marketing. Like you can do a lot of things with the marketing part of a business, okay? But let me just say what I've written down. So marketing is possibly the most important part and it's something you're gonna spend a lot of time thinking about. So the marketing kind of begins when you start your business. So like your name, first and foremost, is it unique? Is it rememberable? Is it memorable? Is it recognizable? If you haven't already started your business, you want to start thinking about that because that can be very important and just make you stand out more compared to other sellers out there. And I guess you don't need a logo. I personally wanted to have some kind of logo or something that's also recognizable. So like I have my tiger. You don't need a logo, but I also feel like having some kind of general color scheme or like vibe for your social media pages. And like your customers will look at your page and be like, I vibe with that, or no, I don't vibe with that. Like the way your page looks overall will draw the customers that you want essentially. So if you have like a cohesive look, I feel like that just helps out in a lot of different ways. So then you're gonna create your new Instagram for your business. Don't try to do your business through your own Instagram. You're gonna want a new one. And then you immediately start posting as much as possible, okay? You get on that Reels grind. The quicker that you can ramp up your followers on all of your social medias, the better your sales will be because followers typically equals sales. And that's just how it is. Like the more people that know you exist, the more people are going to be exposed to what you have to offer. So that should be one of your main priorities, is making content for your Instagram, for TikTok or YouTube or whatever. And that'll just, if you can just like lock that in first thing when you start, you'll be golden. Like that is something I've struggled with the most post, like realizing how important that is. And like, I've just like struggled with posting on social media in general, where like some days I feel really comfortable with it. Some days I'm like, that's the last thing I want to do is worry about what reel I'm gonna post today. Like, I don't know. I've had a weird relationship with it, and I really hope that you don't, because if you can just do it and like have fun doing it, your life will be so much easier and your business will probably be more successful. And if you're wondering like, what should I post? Like, what do you even mean? Like, I'm just selling clothes. Like, what do I post about it? The best thing you can do is look up people that you look up to. Search up people that you look up to on Instagram or whatever and see what they're doing. See what the successful people are doing and take the parts of what they're doing that you really like and implement it into your stuff in your own way. That's what I always do. If I'm stumped, I go to someone that I really look up to and I look at their page and I'm like, okay, this is their kind of routine. This is the kind of stuff they video, type of jokes they make. These are the trends that they follow, all that kind of stuff. And adding on to that, if you really get into like the social media growth of it all, never forget that consistency is key. Consistency is everything. You cannot do anything on the internet well without being consistent. And also, comparison is a thief of joy. This is something I tell myself all the time, because I can't even tell you the amount of times I've been like looking at someone's page that I really look up to, but then I find myself feeling very jealous and like mad at myself for not being as creative as them, or like not being at their level yet. Just feeling bad about myself in general. And I'm like, everyone is on their own journey, especially when you're starting out and you feel like you're in those beginning stages. Like, do not compare yourself to the people that have been doing it forever. And also remember that the people that are successful, they are successful because they were consistent. And that is it. Like, maybe they're creative, maybe they're this or that, but maybe they're none of that and they were just consistent. Literally, that is it. Consistency is like what it all boils down to, period. Yeah, as far as social media goes, that's kind of all I have to say. Just get into it. Get into it immediately. Okay, I'm back. I just had to break because my camera likes to overheat when it's literally in AC. I don't understand any of that, but okay. We're about to wrap this up, but I am not gonna lie to you. I put this video topic into like ChatGPT to see what it would suggest me to cover. And some things that it told me to talk about were balancing business and personal life, share personal experiences of being a young entrepreneur, and discuss time management and self-care. And to that I say, watch my YouTube channel. And to that I say, subscribe, because that is essentially what this YouTube channel is. It is literally me working on my business all the time and how I feel about it, how I'm mentally doing, how I'm structuring myself, all of that fun stuff. So if you're interested in any part of that side of having a small business, just definitely subscribe. So in conclusion, if you are still on the fence about whether you want to start your little thrifting business, I say just go for it. Like, literally, what could go wrong? If you start getting into it and like you suddenly realize maybe this is not for me, all you have to do is literally sell off what you have or donate it, and then you're back to normal. Like it never even happened. Literally, who cares? There's essentially nothing that could go wrong. If you're to this point where you're wondering whether you should have a whole like thrifting business, you're probably already thrifting all the time, so it's not like you're putting that much more money into it. I mean, you're gonna need like maybe just like a couple $100s in the beginning to get a good amount of stock to get closer to having like a sustainable living off of it, because you do want to have a good amount of stuff available for people to shop. You can really easily start a thrifting business on pretty minimal money. Personally, I love my job. I love it so much. Like, I of course have like a wishy-washy relationship with it. Like, I think I said it in my last video. One week I love my job and the next week I'm spiraling about what I'm doing with my life. Am I doing the right thing? Is this the right path for me? But like, overall, I love being able to be the provider of funky vintage clothes to really nice people. Like, I love that moment when we're at the markets and I see someone go up to an item and they're like, oh my God, look at that, that's crazy. And they're like laughing and smiling and showing their friends, and they try it on and they're like, it was made for me. Like, that's so cute to me, and it's so gratifying to help people find really cute clothes. Like, you don't really realize it, but like, clothes is such an important part of people, and it like helps people express themselves, and I just love being able to be a part of that journey, I guess. I don't I don't know. I could probably ramble on and on about different things that I like about this job, but that is something that always comes to mind is I just love connecting people to new pieces of clothing that are unique and fun and they make them smile and all that fun stuff. So yeah. So I'm not 100% sure that I covered like absolutely everything that you need to know to start a business, but I think I mentioned some things that'll definitely get you started, get your gears going a little bit, start thinking about what you need to do next. And yeah, if I didn't cover something or if you want to know like the nitty-gritty about something, let me know down below in the comments. Sometimes I feel like I don't know that much, but I love when someone asks me a question and I actually know the answer to it, because like there's a lot of like useless information in my head, I feel like, that like I don't know that I know until someone asks me that question about it. So if you have any questions about anything related to any of this, let me know. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe, please. I would really, really appreciate it. I put out a new thrifting or small business related video every week, and you can follow me on Instagram at neomai.vintage and check out my shop. Both of those links are down below. I wish you the very best of luck with your business ventures, whether you choose to take them or not. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a wonderful, beautiful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!